Before this video starts, I'm going to be live on Twitch as this video goes live, so if you want to come by afterwards, come say hi, insult me for my opinion on Mercy, anything of that sort, you know where to go. Link on screen, in the description, in the comments, and in your walls. Also, when this video goes live, I should have channel memberships live, so if you'd like to give those a look, I would greatly appreciate it. Anyway, Mercy, previously the best healer in the game, turned Valorant players, you were a mistake. Mercy has been in controversy after controversy for years now, to the point where she's pretty much in her own identity crisis because of them. But I've already used that title for 2 other videos and I can't really be using it again because it's just going to look a little bit strange. So we need to use something new. Mercy is Overwatch's most divisive hero, so let's talk about it. And as per usual, I'm going to be talking about Mercy's history first in terms of balance and all that, and then we're going to be getting into her design. So if you already know her balance by heart, skip ahead. Alright, 2016, Overwatch released and we had a very different Mercy compared to who we all know today. Starting off, Caduceus Staff, primary fire, was an auto-targeted healing beam and the secondary was a damage boost. Nice. Caduceus Blaster was, you know what lads, I'm actually realizing it was all pretty similar to what we had today. I will say that Guardian Angel used to simply just be a dash to a targeted ally and that was all. She was also the only healer in the game with a passive regeneration. But the big difference, that most of you know of however, was her old ultimate Resurrect, or multi-rez as we refer to it now. In an area around Mercy, if an ally was dead, she would be able to res them immediately by hitting ult. There would be a 3-second delay where they were invulnerable before they could move again, but that's still an immediate 5-man res. As for balance changes after release, she had her ult cost increased by 30%, along with it granting her Guardian Angel reset after using a res. Later, she got another change to res that made it so players were mobile after 2.25 seconds instead of 3. Another change to Resurrect as well was that Mercy was now invulnerable along with the revived allies. Now, for the part that most of ye have been waiting for. September 19th, 2017, quite literally 1 week after I played my first ever game of Overwatch, Mercy received her rework. First, she received a new ultimate, Valkyrie. It gave her staff an AoE effect to all nearby allies, gave her gun infinite ammo and faster projectile speed. GA was made faster and given more range, along with the fact that, you know, Mercy now flies around like a moth on coke. Her passive was also changed to be in effect permanently during Valk's duration, and before we talk about the final part, we have a new ability to welcome. Resurrect was changed to an ability that would instantly revive one player of Mercy's choosing with a 30-second cooldown. She lost her invulnerability on it, and the fact that that could have been possible at one point scares me. Back to Valk though, upon its activation it would reset the cooldown of res, along with making any subsequent use of it only have a 10-second cooldown, provided obviously that it was used during Valk. Within just a month of this rework, the nerfs started coming through. First, Valk no longer reset or reduced the cooldown of res, but in exchange it gave res an extra charge. On this same patch she got a change to GA, where pushing space would let Mercy slingshot past an ally. Another month later and we have a new set of changes. Resurrect got a cast time increase to 1.75 seconds, and Mercy's move speed got reduced for the duration, and it could now be cancelled if Mercy was stunned or booped away. As for Valk, while active, it removed the cast time on res, and 2 months later she got more changes to Valk, having the cast time and slow during res added to it, along with the duration being reduced down to 15 seconds from 20. GA also had its speed decreased by 50% during Valk. After this, Mercy just went on radio silence for a few months, until a massive nerf came in. Caduceus Staff had its healing reduced from 60 healing per second down to 50. After another couple months, she got a buff to Valk that increased her healing during it to 60 healing per second, along with a change making it so that the beams were no longer interrupted by barriers, and I want to mention this was just specifically because double shield was after taken off. In 2020, she got a minor buff, increasing her default healing to 55 healing per second, and then received nothing until 2022. No buffs, no nerfs, nothing, but pure radio silence this time. Her final change during Overwatch 1 was to res, with it now being able to res people who died to environmental hazards, meaning she could see their res marker and try to res it before it fell into the abyss. Moving into the Overwatch 2 beta, she had a few things to her name. First, her passive now increased the support passive healing by 50%. She also received a change to GA, where Crouch could now be used to cancel the ability. If cancelled with Crouch, she'd be launched straight up. In the following beta, this got thrown out the window and was changed so that at the end of GA, you would always be launched upwards. Angelic Descent received a change alongside this so that it would reduce her ascent speed as well, meant to combo with the new GA change, but it could also be used against any vertical knockback. But yet again, this GA change got defenestrated and replaced with something new. While flying with GA, Mercy would build up a meter. Cancelling GA with jump would launch Mercy in the direction she was facing, further launched based on the amount charged. Directional inputs would also change where you got launched. And when Overwatch 2 finally released, GA got another change. Oh my god, there's so many. Pressing crouch during GA would now just launch you straight up. She went a few months with no massive changes until we got another fucking GA change. The cooldown got increased to 2.5 seconds, and holding backwards when cancelling now moved 20% slower. Caduceus staff got its healing nerfed down to 45 healing per second, but in exchange it now healed 50% more if an ally was under 50% HP. Finally, her passive regeneration was removed and replaced with something new. Sympathetic recovery. Mercy now heals for 25% of the healing she does to another ally. After only 2 months of this new Mercy, it got completely removed. Healing was reverted, GA cooldown got reverted, along with the jump and crouch cancel active ability state duration getting increased from 1 to 1.5 seconds, and the jump and crouch cancel active ability state can no longer be manually interrupted to begin the cooldown early. That is a mouthful to say. She did keep her new passive however, and Valk was changed to have her support passive active at all times. Her final few changes were all on the minor end. Damage boost got nerfed from 30 to 25%. She got a quality of life change to Valk where it no longer disconnected her beam from its target after being activated, which is something that you would have thought was there the entire time. In February, alongside all the HP changes, she got the active duration on GA cancel reduced to 1 second, and sympathetic recovery had its healing return increased to 40%. How can a character who's an early god less changes than Sombra and Sim have a balance section equally as long? I don't understand. Anyway, release Mercy. Yeah, this was something. So, just for the uninitiated, when Overwatch first released back in 2016, we had 4 supports. Mercy, Symmetra, Zenyatta, and Lucio. Of these supports, one of them didn't heal, and the other 2 had very low healing, leaving Mercy as the queen bee in terms of just raw healing output. If your team needed a high amount of healing, Mercy was your go-to. As for the design of her kit back then, well, it was certainly solid, at least as far as I'm concerned. Her staff and gun were grand, especially with her staff having its close range auto-targeting nature, pretty much making it so that even if you were new to the game, or just new to the FPS genre like I was back when I started, you can still provide value to your team while learning the game. But while her kit was solid, there was a few things that certainly needed work. Back then, damage boost wasn't the issue that it would later become, and that's pretty much just entirely thanks to the fact that you had to be jumping around the entire fight, healing up your team since you were the main source of healing at all times. As for Guardian Angel, this ability will always be one of my favourites in terms of its design, at the very least in its early base form. GA just simply lets you dash to a teammate, and that's all. It's so good, perfect, amazing, all of that. It's the best possible ability to have on a close range support like this. She can easily jump to her teammates to try and help them, but it's not something like, 35 meters through walls. The playstyle that it activated made it live up to its name. Mercy would be a guardian angel bouncing around the battlefield, making sure that everyone was topped up. But as for the elephant in the room, her ultimate, Resurrect. Well, I can't quite sing my praises about this ability if I'm being honest with you. Let me set the scene. But in order to set it, I'm going to need my laptop for the peak writing that I have written down. Your team went in. Everyone died, but you're the lone survivor. The enemy team blasted their ults. They're still weakened after the fight. Maybe they're missing an individual. So you fly out of cover, into the danger, into the red outline people, hit Q, and you've done it. You've brought back all 5 members of your team. You clean up, you take the point, maybe even take the game. You've gotten play of the game, you've earned the praise of your team, and you've gotten a beautiful hit of serotonin and dopamine. But now, let's look at this from the enemy perspective. You landed a beautiful shatter after reading that their Rhine would drop shield to Firestrike, got their whole squad, go in for the cleanup job, and are feeling proud of yourself. Oh wait, Mercy hit Q, guys. Their whole team is back up, full HP, full cooldowns, not missing a single thing. Meanwhile, you're down half your cooldown still, you're probably missing your Zenyatta and Soldier who got picked off before the fight began, and you're all on half health, half your legs, 4 limbs broken, and God knows what's about to happen to you now. It doesn't sound like the most fun thing in the world, now does it? Now I'll level with ye lads. I experienced OG Mercy for roughly 1 week when I first started playing the game. And I do actually have footage of it, though that's never going to resurface anywhere on the internet. What I'm saying is I never experienced this situation or this type of res when I genuinely had a consciousness and a brain while playing Overwatch. The story I just gave was one that has been recounted to me several times from the players of that era, and quite honestly, it's still very strange when you hear about it. It can be argued that there was counterplay to this. You just had to kill Mercy before she got her whole team back up. You know, just hunt her down. Give her the biggest possible target on her back the entire game when she's got her ult up. But realistically, lads, if the best form of counterplay to a character, a strategy, or anything of that sort is just kill them, well, do you have a good character, really? So while Release Mercy was certainly wonderful as the main healer of the Overwatch cast, well, she wasn't exactly the most fun to play against once people started getting better at the game. Hence, we come to 2017, where she got her first rework. Yeah, so Mercy was just a little bit too strong, just a bit. She was only used in every Overwatch League game, you know? Alright, so look, Mothmeta Mercy, you know how she got this rework so that she'd stop resurrecting 5 people every other fight? Yeah, well, that technically wasn't possible anymore. It turned into 3 people from 5, along with an AoE heal and AoE damage boost for your entire team. Personally, I quite like Valk as an ultimate. A lot of my favorite ultimates are steroid ones, ult that enhance just your base kit in some way. But Valk was just too strong, bro, and Rez was doing us no favors. Rez being instant was the primary suspect for this, but the fact you could Rez someone, Valk, Rez someone, wait 10 seconds and Rez a third person was a little bit ridiculous. Once she got the change making Rez have a cast time along with removing all the cooldown related things, it was in a much healthier state. However, it's roughly between the end of Moth meta, about January 2018, and the healing nerf she received going down to 50 HPS in August that year, where a change occurred in Mercy's playstyle and her place in the meta. During the time between these changes, she was a solid, strong pick. She was no longer the meta Moth menace she used to be, but after the healing per second changes, well, things started to shift. First off, we had 3 new supports since the release of the game at this point: Ana, Moira, and Brig. Ana had a strong, long-range heal and beautiful team utility in the form of sleep, anti-heal, and of course nano boost. Moira and Brig were both much shorter range in terms of their healing, but had incredibly strong AoE healing in that range, along with Brig. We'll save that for her own video. I need to remind you, Mercy is on the shorter side of things when it comes to healing range. It was no longer the queen bee in terms of healing before the 50 healing per second nerf, but it was absolutely the nail in the coffin that took her off the podium. And here is where the shift begins. Mercy started to change, from being a main healer that kept her team alive to a pocket, someone who couldn't operate without a DPS to follow around. Obviously, it's not like this was the only thing she could do, but it was by far the strongest method she had to win. Pick the DPS of choice and just make sure they output higher damage and constantly stay alive. This was obviously already a strategy in early Overwatch. Pharmacy has been around since the beginning, so it's nothing new, but now it's stronger than ever, thanks to Rez being single target, along with the fact that Mercy didn't have the numbers to keep up with the healing output of other supports, so she was slowly being shunned into a pocket bot, which is still her role today, especially so thanks to more and more stronger AoE healers being released. So why exactly has this persisted all these years? Well, obviously Resurrect is just too good of an ability. Oh, what's that? Tracer landed a nice triple blink sticky? Ah, don't worry, it was only on one person. I'll get you up there now. I'm not a Resurrect hater really, but I'm certainly no advocate for it. But there's a bigger problem. Damage boost. You knew this was coming, come on now. So I'd like you guys to take a look at the DPS roster. Tell me, how many of these characters have become massive metagame problems thanks to Mercy and damage boost? 4 major ones, with Ashe, Echo, Pharah, and Sojourn, but I absolutely guarantee the lot of you, a pocketed Cassidy, Soldier, Hanzo, Genji, even Widow have been the reason you nearly got chat banned after a game. But let's focus in on the first 4. Ashe and Sojourn both were one-shotting with damage boost, making them nearly impossible to deal with if they had a Mercy next to them keeping them up. Echo? She's Echo. I play this character and I know she's busted. What about Pharah? Well, Pharah had her own issue. Quite frankly, she couldn't operate without a Mercy in most situations. Pharah was either at 70% by herself or 130% with a Mercy. So what happened? She got a rework. What did this rework along with another set of changes result in? Pharah can no longer double direct someone to kill them, unless, of course, she has a damage boost. The rework, which aimed to make her rely less on Mercy, made her rely on Mercy even more. I mean, sure, lesbians adore it, but I'm sorry girls, I just want Pharah to be playable by herself. So after that brief tangent, let's return to the time frame that we were in. Mercy in 2018. Why have I not moved on from this year, you wonder? Well, quite simply, there's only one reason. Mercy Super Jump. A piece of tech was discovered in and around early 2018 with Mercy that, I don't know how the hell they discovered it, but it was a very, very interesting piece. If you crouched and used GA at the exact same time, as you approach someone if you hit jump, you would gain a sudden, massive burst of speed into the air, hence why it's called Super Jump. And of course, this spawned controversy. It's Mercy, of course it did, that's her entire job. I can't even remember why, because it just goes up, that's all it did. Now luckily, she wasn't touched at all, because one of my least favorite things that devs can do is remove cool and interesting bits of movement tech that add extra layers of depth and skill expression to a character. And Super Jump was a very, very interesting piece of tech. I mean, it wasn't exactly difficult. Once you got a hang on the timing, you could pretty much do it consistently every time, but that doesn't mean that you were just going to be doing the exact same super jump every time. Depending on the timing that you hit jump when you were approaching your ally, you could actually gain different amounts of height depending on what you needed. So while your typical Mercy would just go for some usual, big old bounce, a lot of Mercies would vary their heights and they would have specific types of super jumps for specific situations. Whether it was things like just trying to dodge a Reinhardt Earthshatter, or even jumping a certain height to make sure that you stay within the range of a res soul while dodging an enemy ability. And around when this tech was first discovered, we kind of got a mini resurgence in that old 2016 Mercy, who would run around the map, bouncing between all her allies, making sure that everyone would stay safe while dodging enemy fire the entire way. Which, in my opinion, even as someone who doesn't really play Mercy that much, how can you not love that? After 2018, Mercy just kind of fell off a cliff. But the one time you'd see Mercy, especially after roll lock was implemented to the game, was for just straight up pocket strats. Now there was a strategy during GOAT's meta which I was actually quite fond of, which was quad DPS. You'd have a ball, 4 DPS, usually one of which including a Pharah, along with a Mercy. And that was quite simply because Mercy was the only support who could bounce between that many targets while staying alive and staying out of danger. Especially when you were facing something like GOATs on the enemy team, it was absolutely brilliant. I really miss it, it was so fun. But now, moving into Overwatch 2, because I'm telling you, nothing happened between 2020 and 2022 in terms of Mercy aside from that one Resurrection soul change. So come Overwatch 2, they decided to take a look at Guardian Angel. And how did they decide to take a look at it? They just shoved the tech into being an actual mechanic in her kit. So they tried it once, then they tried it again, and then we tried it a third time. You know, at least the third time they gave us control over how far we jump. Every time they tried it, no one liked it. No one wanted this. It wasn't needed. And for most of this video, I've kept my DPS main bias out of the way. But here, it's coming in. I'm sorry, lads. It's just bullshit. It's so stupid. I mean, like, first of all, my main complaint is when you have to deal with it, Mercy is a pain in the hole to actually try and kill, because she'll just be flying one way and then bounce the exact opposite way that she was just going. But look, you know what? That's on me. That's entirely on me. That's just a skill issue. That's my own fault, so we can throw that out the window. But you know something? Mercy has always been a low skill floor, high skill ceiling character. In my opinion, that design philosophy for a character is the most fun and typically one of the best ways to implement a character. Low skill floor, high skill ceiling. Anyone can pick them up, they can start to learn how they play, they can learn the ropes of the game with them, they can learn anything with them. They're beautiful training wheels, but when you're actually climbing and you're getting good and you're getting better, you're starting to learn how things work, there's so many new things that the character unlocks that you can now try. Having depth to your characters is one of the most important things, and what did this change do? It took some of the best depth that Mercy had, which was her really interesting movement mechanics, and just forced it into the kit. The first 2 times it was brutal how they did it. Like, no one even wanted that. Now the third time they do it, well, you're just taking away the skill expression from her kit, aren't you? In Overwatch 1, if you ever saw gameplay of a GM Mercy, a top 500 Mercy, they were nearly playing a different game than your typical lower elo players. And I don't mean like the, oh, you know, top 500 players are so much better. Obviously that. But the way the Mercy players would go about it, especially how they would manage things like GA, bouncing their positioning between their allies, that's just incredible. It was so interesting to watch, but come Overwatch 2, and it's gone. It's just gone. They got rid of it. They got rid of all this interesting stuff that came with watching Mercy and playing Mercy. Mercy isn't my favorite support. That slot is taken by Lucio, but that doesn't change the fact that she's so fun when you actually get to live out the fantasy of bouncing around using GA's movement. But in Overwatch 2, they removed so much of the fun parts of GA by just forcing the ability to constantly have a super jump attached to it. Things like super jumping off a dead teammate's soul to dodge a Ryan shatter and then fly to your other teammate who is helping you get out were such amazing experiences back in Overwatch 1, but in Overwatch 2, while you can still do them and they are still certainly fun and really rewarding, they're just not as rewarding as they were in the previous game. But that just might be to me. To others, you might absolutely adore that this meter exists now, and if you do, I mean look, fair enough, whatever does it for you. But personally, I don't see the reason for Blizzard to take a character who's already deemed as low skill and take away some of the few options she has to show skill expression and that have, you know, an actual skill ceiling element to her kit. Letting a character have a high skill ceiling gives players something to strive for, something to try and learn. It gives your character longevity, especially as a player plays the game more and just improves over time. It lets them feel more satisfaction because they have a new skill to learn, and when they finally learn that skill and start to pull it off consistently, they get that reward of knowing that what they put into practice is coming into fruition. Moving forward anyway, to her mini rework from February 2023. Now, I was knee deep in exams during this time, so I didn't even know this change happened. While researching the balance history for this video, I saw this and all I can say is quite simply, what? When looking at aspects of it, I really like the idea. Mercy healing while healing her allies is cool, increased healing on low HP allies is a similar idea to something I mentioned in a previous video which I'll bring up again in a moment. But nerfing her staff healing to 45? A little excessive, is it not? Also, having the GA cooldown go to 2.5 seconds does nothing but make her just feel sluggish to play. Obviously it didn't work out, since in barely a month, most of it was reverted. Personally, I do like that the passive stayed, and I think it's a lot more interesting than, yeah, I just heal faster if you give me a moment. But this mini rework, quite simply, was an absolute failure on Blizzard's part. After this rework, there were a couple extra changes I didn't mention because they weren't too major, but they hint towards something strange. Mercy got a fair few buffs to her pistol, and the global projectile increase to an ammo increase, which hint towards some kind of push towards a Battle Mercy style, which quite frankly, please don't Blizzard, just don't. I will admit, while getting footage, I went to war against enemy Widows, and in the same game that I did that, I actually got recognized, so Sunky Bino, Noctis, if you're watching this, good game lads, well played. But anyway, I don't think Battle Mercy is the route she should go down at all. What route should I think she should go down then? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to talk about it anyway. So let's preface a few things. This is my career profile. Support is my least played role. I like DPS, obviously. So the way I would go about Mercy may be different from how you would go about Mercy. And that's fine. I want to hear what changes Mercy mains, support mains, or even non-support mains would want to see. But first, let me give mine, since a fair few people have actually asked me in previous videos to give an opinion on changes to give a character, so why not? Starting off, what's the goal that I have in mind here? It's quite simple. I want pocketing gone, or at the very least, heavily weakened. So we may as well start with staff. She's keeping her healing beam, alongside the auto-targeting nature. That's not going anywhere. But I will say I have two ideas in mind which I'm quite fond of. The first is from an older video, where I think during the first few seconds of having the beam on someone, it should have an increased healing which slowly ramps down. I was thinking something like 70, maybe 80 healing per second that ramps down to 30 healing per second over 2, maybe 3 seconds. Sorry for the lack of definitive numbers, but giving roughs is much better here since things always need to be tested in practice. The other idea I had was for her healing to be boosted for a few seconds after using GA. Like I've mentioned several times, I find Mercy to be at her most fun bouncing around the teamfight like a maniac, so giving her a similar, brief heal boost after using GA would encourage this style. But I don't really want her healing to be tied to a movement ability, so that one is a little more iffy. For the first one, the ramping heal beam, there need to be a cooldown of some description on the target, so that you don't just cancel beam for 2 frames, put it back on, and immediately gain the boosted healing per second again. I'd say something like another 2 or 3 second cooldown on the target between getting this boost would be reasonable. And as for damage boost, I was not really too sure what to do with this thing. I had a few ideas, one being replacing it with a speed boost, but that idea was just kinda eh. Another was damage reduction, but then I remembered Orisa exists and I don't want to imagine that combo. Another was like a mini Kitsune rush, giving the target increased attack and reload speed, which I do quite like, and it's still similar enough to damage boost, but then I thought, what if I just gave damage boost similar behavior to that new heal beam? A boost that ramps down as you hold it. Now, I'm tied between that and the attack stim, Both are interesting and would encourage the be everywhere, you're the team's guardian angel gameplay that I have in mind, but I'm so genuinely torn between the two of them that I don't really mind which one could be implemented. Either way, I think it would be interesting, but a lot of numbers obviously have to be tested, especially the cooldown on individuals between heal and boost, since quite frankly, if both had the same 3-second interval cooldown, you could still pocket efficiently, so I'd like some opinion on what we could do in terms of that, if nothing else. As for GA, I will not touch it whatsoever, aside from the heal boost change I mentioned earlier if you wanted to go down that route, but I will say I'm reverting it to the Overwatch 1 version. All super jump is returning, and slingshot mechanics are coming back. And resurrect. Oh god, okay. Personally, I want to throw this ability out, so that's what we're doing. But what's our replacement? We need something protective, something that enhances the guardian angel looking over the team idea, and that's when I came back to the damage reduction from earlier. Who says we can't just reduce it on tanks? I'd say it would operate something like an old Symmetra shield, an auto-targeted ability. Now, the issue is that this could be quite frustrating to deal with, so what do we do with it? On squishier heroes, I think a 30%, maybe even 25% boost to damage reduction for 3 seconds is fairly reasonable. The responsibility is with Mercy to use the ability at a good time to get the maximum value. And as for tanks, like 10% or something, you need a low amount of damage reduction, bro. These guys rotate between being way too hard to kill and way too easy to kill sometimes. And for her ultimate, I think we just keep Valkyrie, just as it is. I do like it if I'm being honest with you, but we need some alterations to the beam aspect. I think keeping the AoE on her beams is fair, but what about the cooldown on the ramping? I'd say change it so that the ramp time is doubled, meaning that it takes twice as long to get to your bottom amount. And as for the cooldown, I'd say it's reasonable for it to stay on whatever number we came across for the shared interval thing, because I still can't come up with something that sounds fun for both Mercy and her allies. Like honestly, it's very hard to come up with something good for that cooldown between the two beams that would prevent pocketing without it being strange to play with, so I really need some opinions there. And as for her passive, well, obviously she's keeping Angelic Descent, but also I think she can keep Sympathetic Recovery as well, though realistically we're going to want to lower that down to maybe 25% on that healing return or so, just given the fact that she's got a bigger boost with it now. My goal with this rework is to give Mercy more dynamic gameplay, along with making her more active as a support instead of just following Pharah and hoping they land shots. Pretty much all I want is for her to be bouncing around the battlefield, like I've said several times already. In the current Overwatch landscape, Mercy just gets run over. If the other team has two more active supports, something like Ana, Kiriko, Lucio, Yari, anyone of that, like Bap, whatever, if they have any support like that, Mercy's just gonna get run over. And that's because, like I've already said in one of my previous videos, she's never operating at 100%. Her entire shtick is taking 30% away from her and shoving that into a DPS of some kind. That's the only way she can operate now. I don't know about the rest of you, but in my own elo, whenever you see someone lock in a Mercy, you just do a silent prayer that either the DPS on your team, or even yourself if you are the DPS, that you're going to be able to make use of the damage boost and things that are going to be coming in, because if you can't, you're nearly down to support, lads. At the moment, the entire player base has different things that they want from Mercy. There's some who want her to be nothing more than just an absolute heal bot who can run around and make sure everyone's back to full. They want to return to that old style of Mercy from years ago, but quite frankly, that's not possible unless you change her kit dramatically. There's others, like me, who want her to be a more mobile support, someone who'll dash around the battlefield being the guardian angel that she's supposed to be. And then there's the people who want her to just shove steroids into your DPS. I mean, look, if that's what you enjoy, that's what you enjoy, but I think there's better things that can be done with a character. It's all of these things combined that make Mercy Overwatch's most divisive hero in the game's history. But you know what? I want to hear it from you. What do you think about Mercy? My version of Mercy, the changes that I proposed, past or present Mercy, anything of that sort. If you have thoughts on Mercy, I really want to hear them. Whether you main Mercy, whether you main support, or even if you've never touched the role or the character in your life, I want to see what other people's opinions are. I really want to see what you thought my own changes, because I certainly need some more second opinions on them. And as a reminder, if you're watching when this video is live, I'm currently live on Twitch, so as per usual, link on screen, description, comments, and your walls. And again, another reminder that channel memberships should be live, and if they're not, this is going to look really, really bad on me. So let's just hope that they are anyway. But I'm done for today now, so sure look, if you're still here and if you enjoyed, go on, drop a like, drop a sub, all that YouTube stuff, and I'll talk to you next time, lads.